Are we ready to rock and roll?
We are live and we are recording, and let's get started. So welcome everybody to this monthly series of Reframe webinars, Pricing with Confidence, Part 4, the Confidence Code. If you're attending live, you should see three heads in the webcam. You see my brother Carlos and co-founder of Reframe, and Trisha, who Carlos will introduce with detail very soon. But all three of us will be having a really interesting conversation of brand new content that Carlos has been working on for several months. And we think we just had to get over the tax season. So happy post April 15th to everybody that's tax adjacent. And I think this particular piece of content is going to resonate well, and it's going to have so much immediately applicable insights. So we're very excited about that. So we'll spend about 3 minutes finishing the introduction, talking about the CPE process, then about 5 minutes to talk about our live events. This is the last webinar we have until Carlos and I go on tour. We'll be hitting 4 major cities in the United States. And we strongly encourage you, now is the time to come and give yourself permission to improve your life and business by going deep into a particular area that we think has incredible impact, which is the value conversation, having impactful conversations with people asking questions, and is one of the very few live in-person events that you get to do that. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll spend the last 50 minutes or so. Carlos will have a deep conversation with Trisha about this brand new content called the Confidence Code. And then we'll end the webinar last 2 minutes, just doing a quick promo to our Miami event, where Trisha will be one of our keynote speakers. So we're also introducing Trisha to the world prior to for her being on the main stage of one of the proudest things that Carlos and I have ever created in our lives, which is a Reframe event. So let's get right to it. This is the fourth session of a 10-session multi-part webinar series. We started in January. We're going to end in October. If you go to Hector Garcia CPA's YouTube channel, you can see the last episodes that were recorded. A lot of people attend this live, which is great because you can go in the chat, you can ask questions, you can interact. We're going to have polling questions. We're going to have all sorts of really great conversations, and we would love to get your take in any of these things. And this ultimately promotes the big event in Miami, which everybody should strongly consider going to. There's already 120 something people that are coming, and we have a limit of 150. So obviously, we want to encourage people to fill in the last 25 spots. We will sell out. We sold out last year, even though we had a bunch of people that couldn't come because of the hurricane, and we sold out the year before. So like we have no doubt in our minds that we're going to sell out again. So obviously book that early. And now you will get copies of the slides. Carlos is going to copy and paste the slides in the live chat for those that get anxiety for not having copies of the chat immediately. But we're going to email you. We're going to email you the slides. We're going to email you any additional resources that we mentioned in the slides. We're going to email you the recording. That's also going to go in my YouTube channel, and it should take about a day usually. Sometimes we'll do the same day. Sometimes it's about a day. For those CPAs that need their CPEs, we will have 4 polling questions through the webinar. Our logs have to show that you answered something in the 4 polling questions, and you must be there for at least 50 minutes for us to issue that webinar. And the CPE will be emailed within 10 business days. If you don't get it, it went to your spam or whatever, just email me and someone from my team will make sure to issue that CPE certificate. So Reframe is going on tour. Carlos Garcia is heading My brother Carlos Garcia is heading the tour. I will be at 2 of the 4 cities in the East Coast. We're going to do LA on May 6th. If you live in LA, are near LA, or plan to be in LA that day, or make the effort to be in LA that day, come here. Come do this session with Carlos because it will be transformative, and I'll prove that to you very soon. Then we're going to do Chicago on Tuesday. May 13th, I will be at this session. Trisha lives in Chicago or near Chicago. We're going to figure out a way to drag her to this session too, so you can also interact with her in person in Chicago. Then we have Dallas back-to-back on the 15th. And all the addresses are here. These are all ADP offices. We thank ADP for providing space for us to do these things, and ADP is providing lunch, right? So in exchange of hearing about ADP payroll for like 5 minutes or something, you will have lunch taken care of. And then in New York City on June 9th, and I will be in the New York City session because I'm also taking my family to New York City for a couple of days to go see the Yankees. And don't judge me on that, by the way. So there's the link to register for any of them. It's $975. It's a one-day workshop, 9 to 5. It's limited to 20 accounting professionals. So it will be mastermind style. We're going to help you master the value conversation. You've heard about value pricing a gazillion times, but they never tell you how to have the value conversation that helps you have a price based on value. So that's what we're going to be focusing in, is on the value conversation, valuable questions, influential questions, curious questions that help you figure out what the real problem is, what's the real root cause of the problem, and therefore we know what we're selling in the first place, right? It's inspired by Reframe 2024. That was called Influential Conversations for Accountants. This is going to be a one-day version, or was a 3-day event. Trisha was actually a coach or a table leader in that conference, and she was named like by name in many of the feedback forms of people saying how wonderful their interactions with her was at the tables. We're going to include our entire kit of exactly what to say for accountants materials, and the link is on the slides, which is the book, the implementation guide, the role play cards, and that's actually all part of what we are going to be working on in these events. For those CPEs, we're going to have an 8-hour CPE, and then it's also going to serve as a pre-certification, something that we're working on that will be launched in July, where we're going to do certification programs just for accounting professionals. Where we'll grab the standard certification program that exactly what to say guides give, but it's all 100% contextualized to accountants. So this will serve as a pre-certification, which allows us to make it a little bit less hours on the back end. And so we're still working on that, and that would be an optional if you want to be fully certified on exactly what to say. Again, there's the link to register. If you have any specific questions, logistics, content, whatever, go ahead and contact Carlos. His email is in the slides. Now, we are inviting everybody that signed up already to what we're calling a workshop preview. So whoever's coming to these cities already are going to get an automatic invite at no cost, included with their registration, to a workshop preview that we're doing on Tuesday, the 29th. It's a 90-minute webinar, and we're going to contextualize what the one-day workshop is, and we're going to teach you content that we can't cover at the workshop, which is the strategic intent behind the value conversation. And for those that are not coming or can't come or haven't decided to come to one of the cities yet, you can come just to this webinar, and we priced it at $25. So we priced it as something so the people that show up are committed and they're not just listening in the background while shuffling paper in their desk, but also affordable enough that this should be a why not. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't show up to this webinar, especially if you watch 13 or 14 of our free webinar series. This is one thing that I think you're going to get a lot of value. We're calling it Plus Your Prices Without Pushback. All P's, thanks to ChatGPT, by the way. Plus your prices without pushback. And then we are going to talk about what I think is the truth behind pushback. And I'll spoil it for you. The clients are not giving you pushback. You are leaving a door open for pushback. So that we're actually going to explore what that means. And I'm very stoic, so I tend to see the world as, whatever just happened happens, but also I'm kind of in control, and it's really all my fault, and I could have done something different to fix it. So you're going to get a little bit of my philosophy there. We're going to talk about questions that sell, some of the science behind the strategic questions you need to have during the value conversation, where the questions that you're using to just gather information about your client actually simultaneously are scoping and creating value at the same time. We're going to talk about the concept of Peter Drucker's marketing and innovation. Peter Drucker said that the only function of a business is marketing and innovation, which basically accountants hate because accountants swear that accounting is a very important function of the business. It's not. And we're actually going to explain that, and that's going to be recontextualized to the entire strategy, which we're going to give you what I think is a blueprint for a reimagined firm strategy. So you are positioned for premium, higher pricing only, and we're going to give you the template. Okay, we built this template, which is called the 10 piece of a reframe practice. We're going to give you a template and some examples of how to build it in your own. So definitely come by to one of the cities. And with that, I'm done introducing and sales pitching. Carlos, I'm going to allow you to, I'm going to stop sharing. You take control. And at the same time, I'm going to run the first polling question, Carlos, while you introduce her. And I'm going to be launching 3 more polling questions through the webinar, but I will not be saying when. Just pay attention to Zoom. Take it away, Carlos.
Okay, so the first polling question is, what emotion do you wish you could have more of? And then go ahead and you see that pop up. Go ahead and vote when you get a chance. Now, real quick, I want to take a moment to introduce our super amazing guest, Trisha Browers, who today not only is going to join us virtually, but will also joined us last year as Hector mentioned, as a table facilitator and a perspective changer. And Trisha is what I call a confidence coach, a leader, an advocate. She has been in executive leadership in the mortgage space, and we purposely like to bring thought leaders from different industries and different perspectives, because we can definitely learn from folks who have seen the world with the similar challenges, similar levels of adversity, especially when navigating topics like confidence, like pricing, like value conversations, and the importance of language, and being able to understand it from a different point of view, because part of our ability to communicate our value is also about understanding our customer's perspective, and it's much different than an accountant's perspective, right? And so I'm super excited to introduce Trisha. Trisha, welcome. And is there anything that I missed that would be helpful for our folks to learn about you?
Oh my goodness. I think you did a great job, and I want to live up to all of the great things that you said. I will just share a personal perspective of being a part of Reframe helped me also reframe some things. I am a student as much as I am a coach, and I learn from the conversations I have with the people around me. So I can't wait to have some great conversations again with the team that's on the line today, with you and with Hector, as well as the group in person in the upcoming weeks and months.
Amazing, amazing. So let's get the conversation started. So we call this the confidence code because we know that confidence comes and goes. Confidence can mean many things to many people. Often it could be interpreted differently, but in doing research for the word confidence, several definitions came about. But the one that resonated with me the most, especially when it comes to the context of what we're talking about today, is this: the state of feeling certain about the truth of something. The state of being certain about the truth of something. Searching for truth, right? Finding truth. And oftentimes, when we think we know the truth about something, we feel certain. But what happens when a new truth exists, which happens in our daily lives, right? We thought when we were teenagers, we knew the answers to everything. How many of you have ever been or have had teenage kids who you tell them something, they're like, I know, I know, I know, I know. And they're so overly confident, but in a very, innocent way, right? Because they really don't know. And there's this really great mindset and quote that goes, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And so confidence is really about that endless search for the truth. But when you have that certainty about the truth of something, you could truly move with confidence, act with confidence, communicate with confidence. When you see this definition, Trisha, what resonates with you about it?
When I look at this and I see the truth of something, something can truly be anything. It's really about the story and the narrative, right? So whose truth are we standing in? Are we standing in our own truth? Are we standing in a generational truth or belief, or a truth that has been imposed upon us by someone that has either been a mentor, a coach, a client, a family member? Whose truth are we standing in, and what do we want to stand on? It's really interesting when you think about how that goes into our abilities or our inabilities to perform.
And now we think about confidence too, when we think about money, when we think about pricing and pricing conversations. There, some of the rules of this definition kind of change a little bit, right? Because oftentimes our confidence is tied to an emotion. And typically the emotion is either like that certainty, right? And certainty, you can only achieve certainty through like going through a journey of getting there. But what is the opposite of feeling confident? It's feeling doubtful, feeling fearful. So oftentimes when we want to communicate something like our price to a customer, or when we want to publish it, or when we want to send a proposal, whether it's right there in the moment with the customer or when someone is questioning our price, oftentimes our confidence becomes challenged, right? Sometimes we challenge it internally, and sometimes our clients are challenging it ourselves. So we want to walk you through the journey of a couple things. And I also want to make sure that we get clarity on what confidence is and what confidence is not. So real quick, we're going to play a little game in the chat where you're going to type in the chat what the difference between confidence and arrogance means to you. Because what we're not here to teach you is how to be that alpha, I know everything, listen to me, I'm going to talk more than you. It's not that. Confidence is more of an internal driver that we're talking about so that you can act with purpose, so that you can act with certainty, so that you can communicate your value better, so that you could also leverage a skill like curiosity, which is something that Trisha will share with us later. So Alan says humility. Rhonda says ego. Lee Bruno says arrogant is know-it-all, bad vibe, right? And there are many things that are true here. Trisha, when you're reading these comments, or maybe from your perspective, what is the difference from your point of view between one and the
Sure.
other?
I'm looking at these and I'm just seeing, arrogance is rudeness. Confidence feels open, but arrogance feels closed. So when you're confident, are you approachable? Where arrogant feels unapproachable? And where is that fine line? Because confidence overused can become arrogance very quickly. And I think about Phil Jones and one of our mentors, Carlos, and I think about where he talks about confidence over competence becomes arrogance. And so, I'm reading these comments and it's interesting. So if you were to think about as a group, and maybe this is something you can put in the chat box, when you think about the word confidence in itself. So I'm seeing confidence is curiosity. Confidence is about the client. What is a quality you see when someone is exuding confidence over arrogance? Let's quantify it down to actually a quality. So, what quality do you see in confidence versus arrogance? So, quality and confidence, what would that look like?
I'm
Doing
just
your
going to do it.
best. Ooh,
Sorry.
Carolyn has a really great one. Did you see this? Confidence is doing your best to find the answer of a problem, understanding that we live in a static world that can change anytime. Changes are inevitable and may override what we know to be true yesterday.
Wow. That's powerful, right? But I wanna go back to your other question about what quality. One, when I was younger, okay, and I worked at the bank, and I needed to tell people part of my job was to teach people how to retire, how to plan for retirement. Tell me, Trisha, how a 20-year-old kid has to sit in front of a 45-year-old man or woman and have a retirement conversation. So I didn't have confidence. I needed to borrow it elsewhere. So the first quality that came to mind, I said, well, if at least I'm not confident enough because I don't have the experience, at least I'll fill it with knowledge. So I think being knowledgeable is one of the qualities of someone that's confident, especially if we're selling professional services. And this is one that all of us, especially in this practitioner, and in your world too, right? You know that if you can fill your team members with knowledge, that is a good stepping stone towards them building confidence, because knowledge is like a competency, right? If you're competent on what you're talking about, then you're more likely to be more confident in knowing what you're talking about. Make sense?
And 100%. And being the kid that's 25 years old, helping someone retire, you would have to ask them what's important to them. The only way that you could lead is arrogance is leading with a solution. Confidence is leading with curiosity.
I love it.
I'm going to ask the questions that will develop the relationship. We're going to have a great conversation about it. But if I lead with a solution and I don't ask any questions, that's arrogance. That means I know it all. I've seen it all. I know what's important to you. It's like a recruiter calling me one time telling me I know everything about you. And I said, really, everything, everything. I said, great. What's my favorite color? And he just stopped, right? That's arrogance.
Sure.
Confidence, curiosity, arrogance. I know it all and I don't ask any questions.
Right. Absolutely. A confident person is open-minded to know that there could be 99% sure, but that 1% is being open to know that they could also be wrong, that they're open to seeking a different truth, right? So a confident person is someone who's seeking for all the right truths in service to others, where an arrogant person is in service to self, right?
100%.
So
Really
where does
well.
this show up? So where this shows up is in what Trisha was referring to earlier, which is our self-talk narratives. Now, oftentimes we may hear ourselves say certain things when it comes to pricing our service, and maybe some of these things could sound familiar to you. We think about increasing prices for assisting client, and something gets in our way that challenges our confidence to be able to move, to be able to act, which is they've been with me forever. I can't raise the price. We have that emotional bond with them, right? They were there with me since the beginning. But how much more value and knowledge and things have you developed over time where the value has increased in multiples compared to the price that they've been paying you? And so these are some of the challenging questions where you want to be curious enough to say, in reality, like, is that truth really a valid truth? Or if I charge more, they'll think I'm greedy. I've heard this before when I'm coaching personal clients, because when we charge professional services, it's us, right? We usually connect the value or the worth of our services to us, the practitioner. So if we charge that much, then I am a greedy person because it's a high number. Compared to what? Maybe compared to the way we grew up, the way we saw money, the way our parents saw money, the way the people of authority has taught us to believe what money is. So are these real truths, or could it be possible that we could stay curious enough and ask some questions to challenge some of these thinking ideas? Because these are the narratives that erode our confidence or challenge it for us to be able to move forward, with that certainty to raise our prices, to communicate our value. Or I'm not experienced enough to price like that. Probably hear that one as well. Or they won't understand the value, right? Which then is this their job to understand the value, or is it our job? Is it our responsibility to communicate our value? All right. And now just imagine instead being able to feel and say these kind of narratives and create these kind of narratives in your internal self-talk. Long-term trust includes honest growth conversations. Charging more doesn't mean I'm greedy. It means I value what I give. Outputs are temporary measurements. Transformations are permanent. It's my responsibility to understand what the clients value, and the price is a fraction of the value that I create. So these are some great mantras. These are some good self-talk, borrowed confident statements that you can start, aiming towards, so that you can act with certainty, with and also with that safety and that feeling of like not being anxious, because oftentimes the unknown can be scary. And we know that there are a lot of things as to why people don't do things: because of fear, because of rejection, or because of fear of rejection. But that's just imaginary, right? We need the evidence first to know if that's a real truth. Let me just quick pause, quick reflections, Trisha.
So I love the terminology borrowed confidence, because I think borrowed confidence builds confidence. And when we're building confidence, we're asking questions. And the questions we should be asking are the internal ones before the external conversations happen, right? So there's a coaching fundamental that I've coached off of for years, and many of you may have heard this before, but let it take on a little bit different light. If our thoughts become our beliefs and our beliefs become our actions, what are the thoughts that we're having? What are the thoughts that we're having internal before external? Are we questioning, are we worth it? Are we questioning, do I have enough context in order to provide a solution? Do I have the ability to just take a step back and ask one more good question? One more question. Because what happens is our thoughts, whether it's borrowed confidence while we build confidence, or it's a narrative or a generational stronghold or something that's been put on us, maybe someone told us you can't charge that. Well, how do they know? And why can't we charge that? Are we asking because the thoughts will become the beliefs? So you can have borrowed confidence, you can also have borrowed narratives. And so if we're going to break that, right, is it a positive narrative or a negative narrative? And are we going to take action based on what we know? So thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become actions, and inaction is also an action. So if we choose not to move forward with something, or we don't take action because we're afraid of taking action, friends, we're taking action. We're choosing not to do it.
Yeah.
And so, right? Inaction is also an action. So, what questions could we be asking ourselves to get into a really great internal conversation and build a relationship, whatever it is we're looking to achieve? And I like to talk about building relationship with our goals. You can think about the most important relationship that you have in your life. Carlos, we're just going to say for conversation's sake that your most coveted relationship you have in your life is the one with Hector. And
Questionable,
so,
but yes, that's
you know, some days, right?
yeah.
But would you ever want to disappoint Hector in a life, family, or business situation?
No, no.
Because of the cost of what on the other side?
The impact, the relationship, just the shame, whatever feelings and emotions, what would come, right? Like I think about when I was a kid back in like 17 or 16 and kids wanted to go out and do a keg party. The first thing I thought of, what if I go to jail? What would my parents think, right? Because I grew up on these values and like you said, trust, and I trusted them. That's the first thought
Mhm.
that came to mind. Yeah.
Sure, you wouldn't want to disappoint him or disappoint your parents or the people that are stakeholders. So think about it. If we got into relationship with our goals in the same way, we wouldn't want to disappoint our goals. We want to live up to them. So therefore, you know, what questions could we be asking to lead to a great conversation to get in relationship with what it is that we want, right? Who it is that we're serving and what we're solving for on the other side, because that's when the opportunities are going to be there that we can say, wait, I can think about this a little differently. I can approach the conversation this way. And that's when we've got the courage to take action to do something that's actually connected to the set of beliefs that we want to stand in versus that negative possible narrative that we have there. You know, put that away. What's the story? What's the thought? What's the belief? How can we take action to move forward?
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And these are little mantras that we can work on. And there's many that we're going to share so that we can find our own journey, find your own sentence, find your own mantra, right? Like I have my own weird one that I say when I was early in my entrepreneurship journey, when I was like wanting to take action towards something, I always thought to myself, what if I fail? What are they gonna think? What if I get rejected? What if did I really do this? Like, did I really quit my 9 to 5 job? And why did I do that? Like that came up a lot. So
Right.
then in a weird, curious way, to your point, Trisha, which I know we're gonna go into that in just a little bit about how powerful curiosity can be. I started asking myself, like, what's really the worst thing that could happen? What's really
Mhm.
the what's the worst possible consequence of life is death. I needed to think this crazy, this extreme.
Mhm.
So I started saying to myself, I'm not gonna die from this.
And nobody died. Right.
I'm not gonna die from this. And that was my mantra. That was the one that worked for me. You're not gonna die. That's all I kept on saying to myself. Just do
Right.
it. Make the
And
next video. You're not gonna die. Say the price. You're not gonna die. Call
right.
the person. You're not gonna die. Like it's crazy. That's my own way of it. So I want you to find your own way. And Blair Enns, who is gonna be our next keynote speaker, has a beautiful mantra when it comes to contextualizing how to communicate your price with confidence. The first one is, I am the expert. And we've gone over this before. in our last Reframe, our part 2 Reframe webinar. I am the prize. I am the prize to be won. So now if we now say this internally, the client is privileged. This is not being arrogant, right? This is understanding your value, recognizing that the value that you provide, the knowledge, the years, the CPEs, the licenses, all the work that you've done to build your technical knowledge expertise, that's the prize that's to be won in the eyes of the client. This is the humble part. I'm on a mission to help, right? We want to stay rooted to our purpose, our why. I can only do that if you let me lead. Hector, typo, if you can fix that, please. I can only do that if you help me lead. And I accept that not all we follow. And that's the part where you can still feel confident even if people say no to you, because you are on a bigger mission. Trisha, you're touching your heart?
Oh my gosh, it just touched my heart. I think when you get clarity on your purpose and truly understand what that is, for me, I want to reach the most amount of people in the least amount of time, making the greatest amount of impact. I can put that on a sticky note. That is my mantra. That is how I am able to live in authenticity. So that's where the curiosity comes into play. And not everyone will follow because they may not be on the same mission you are. And that's okay.
And
If
that's
you can,
hard, by the
right?
way.
Oh,
That's the
sure.
hardest part.
Sure. Because we're wired that that's part of our acceptance.
So
If people
many of
will
us
follow,
are people pleasers by nature, right?
sure.
Like, and so getting someone to say no, or you saying no to someone, because sometimes you have to say no to the client. Like, you're not for me. We're not a fit. It's not just about the anxiety of the client potentially rejecting you. It's the anxiety of you having to say to the client, you're not for me because I'm not here to do this endless, scopeless, favorful, just crappy engagement that I know I'm going to work my butt and tail off, and you're not going to pay me, what it should be really properly worth.
When you think about that and you can stand in your authenticity of what your value statement is, whether it's your value statement or your purpose statement, you only have 1,440 minutes in a day. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, if I were to let go of that client and that endless scope of work that isn't going to be fruitful for you, if I were to let that go, what would I be able to pick up? If I put the energy, time, and resources into someone that was more aligned with what's on my sticky note, what would that do for you? What would that do for your business? I think about it from what would that do globally? What would that do locally? And what would that do for me? And in the reverse, the same. What would that do for me? And how would I show up differently when I'm not putting endless time, energy, and effort into something that isn't producing results? But I could take that time back and give it to people who do see my value, who do see my worth, and is willing to pay my price. That's when you start to stand into a position of confidence. That's not arrogance. That's being truly confident in who you are as a professional in your line of work to make a difference through your mission. And we're going to call it your sticky note.
And that's your truth, right? To your point,
Your
confidence
truth.
is your truth. It's finding the truth and the truth of your authentic self and what you value and what boundaries you're willing to set. Because a lot of this is boundary setting as well, right? What kind of clients you're
Right?
willing to accept. So, Trisha, I know you and I are both equally passionate about this concept from exactly what to say. What can you share with the folks about the triangle of trust?
Oh, the triangle is so good. And really what it is understanding that this is moving and it's in motion. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to come from curiosity. Curiosity is the fuel for great conversations. And it may start with curiosity about, why do I think this way? Why am I positioning myself this way? Where is the internal conversation happening before the external ones? Because what happens in the space of curiosity is what we're not in is certainty. We're not putting a hardcore end anything. We are in curiosity. We are not certain of anything because certainty actually creates adversity. When you approach a client, as an example, and says, this is what you need, this is the scope of work we're going to do, and think about a time when a parent maybe did that to you. My dad was highway or the highway run, and he would come up to me and tell me, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And I was like, why would I ever do that? And why would I do it that way? You didn't ask me any questions. And it created adversity. And I leaned back instead of leaning in. So if we truly understand that if we come at things from curiosity, what we're doing at that point in time is it goes into the next space, which is it gives us the ability to create empathy. Empathy dances into relatability. And Carlos, this is a danger zone if it's gotten wrong. And what I mean by this is sometimes people think relatability is, oh, I heard them say this and I can tell them a story about me. Oh, yeah. Well, and I'll give a perfect example. I was talking about my dad. And then all of a sudden it becomes a conversation about, well, my dad did this and my dad did that. And they think they're building a relationship with me. But really, all they're doing is they're taking the conversation and they're putting it back to them. We want to know that the people that we're looking to serve and the things we're looking to solve for are at the center of our conversation. We're not. My mom used to say, God gave you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth for a reason. Observe twice as much, listen equally as much, and speak less.
Mm-hmm.
This is where this empathy and relatability, if done right, dances right into the ability for them to take courage and take action. And what's so powerful about this is that empathy and relatability space, when we get clarity on who we're serving and what we're solving, all of a sudden the dynamic changes. And the dynamic changes from the me versus you space to, wait a minute, this is us versus it. This is Carlos and Trisha understanding what this team needs and how can we put solutions in place based on all the feedback that you're giving and the poll questions and the things that are in the chat box. When we get this right and it becomes us versus it, that is truly where the magic happens. So the goal is to make sure that we are leading with a question, not with a solution, because courage then gives them the ability to take action. And that's truly the foundation of where trust is built.
And Trisha, I know I put a different lens to it, which is, what if we ran this same concept, not just with customers, but within ourselves? When our
Right.
confidence is shot, what do we achieve if we stay curious enough? We achieve self-awareness. Now, because we're aware of how we're feeling, how we're thinking, what are some of the potential truths that exist right now? And if we're curious enough to accept that there's a possibility to a different truth, we can also be self-compassionate. And by being self-compassionate, we can also achieve self-acceptance. The more connected we are to our mission and our truth, then the more courageous we can be to move with confidence.
Oh, absolutely. And that I think is such a beautiful little bow on the fact of the internal conversations that lead to external results. If we are not self-aware of where our strengths are, and by the way, sometimes people go, oh, well, self-aware around where our weaknesses are. You probably, if you were to do a pro-con list on yourself, you would have more pros than what you're giving yourself credit for. And could it be that those pros are worth far more than any deficits that you might have? Where then you can dance into the space of self-acceptance to say, here is where I shine. Here's what I do really well. And I don't have to be able to do this well because it's not important to the people that I'm serving. What's important to the people I'm serving is what I'm putting out and putting forth. And that leads that self-confidence piece in the sense of, I am worth it. And you can write the things on the sticky note because you see the value in who you are, and the world needs you. The world needs people like you and people who care. Oof.
Yes, right on. We're going to take a quick pause. Hector is going to add a third polling question for the folks.
Yeah. And while the third polling question is up, and the question is, how would you want your clients to describe you? And this was a tricky one because I'm pretty sure that all these things apply, right? Like we want all these traits. I think we want to list every positive trait in the world, that we want everyone to always think of us as all those positive traits. And I know there are some very special people, charismatic people in the world that can achieve that. However, it's hard to work in all of them at the same time. I would say, like, it's hard to work on being smarter or sharper, work on being knowledgeable and resourceful, it's hard to work. And I know that some of us have some of these things already built in and innately. Like some people are just innately honest. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to work at it. They just are honest. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing, right? Like being transparent is not always such a great thing. But it's an interesting question to think about. What do you want? How do you want your clients to describe you? And if you're pretty sure that that is the biggest thing, then go back and figure out, okay, am I living to that expectation? And if I'm going to work on something this year or next year, let me work on that, right? So like if you think being knowledgeable and resourceful is what it is, then you got to work on increasing your knowledge and your resourcefulness, right? Which is it kind of goes hand in hand. But sometimes resourcefulness is not about knowing, it's about applying what you know and putting it to practice and building systems in place and platforms so your knowledge can be spread across your organization and can be readily accessible to all your clients, et cetera, et cetera. Tricia, you want to say something?
So there's a fundamental principle that is amazing, and it's called Pareto's principle. And it's about understanding that the majority of what we want can come from the minority of what we do. If we get really clear on, some people know it as the 80-20 principle. And if we get really clear on that 20%, the 20%, if we invest time, energy, and effort into that, then, the 80% is served by the 20%. So that's where the majority of what we want can come from the minority of what we do. Could it be possible that if you focus in and hone in on that one area, the ripple effect of that and what that would serve would be far greater than what you could ever imagine? Sometimes we want to focus on the 80%. We want to focus on all of the things, and we don't live a life in priority. We live a life by a list. And by the way, we love lists. We need them in our industry. You need them in your industry, right? There's a checklist that we follow. We love the checklist. However, do we work the checklist in order of priority, or is it the first thing that came to mind? If you're going to do this and serve yourself and serve others in such an amazing way, write all the things that you could be working on. Do a huge brain dump exercise. Write them all down. Put the list away for a day. Come back to it. Look at the list and say, does this still resonate with me? Are these things I should be working on or could be working on? Well, if I could only choose one on this entire list, where should I spend my time? Not because it's an easy lift, not because it's something I can check off really quickly, so beware of that, but because it would be impactful in more ways than just one. Use that as what you choose to hone your skill on in. And if you think about it, right, this is the methodology we're using here right now. You're asking yourself a question and creating self-awareness around what can I do, that would create change in a meaningful way. Okay, well, you know what? Can I get in relationship with that particular goal and display empathy with myself that maybe I'm not perfect today? And it's not about being perfect. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm a 5. But if I became a 6 in that area, not 5 to 10, but if I became a 6 in that area, what would that mean to me? And what would that mean to the people around me? Okay, I can accept that I can do a little bit more than what I'm doing and act with greater intention for a greater result. And then that gives you the ability to take courage and take action in that one particular area. And by way of that, you build your self-confidence because now you leveled up.
Right on. So we know that if we add, we love math, right? Accountants love math. So let's do this math equation. If we add curiosity, empathy, and courage, we arrive at a place of trust. And we know this that externally with our clients, when we have conversations, if we lead with these 3 key elements, we're going to get to a place of trust with them. If we do this internally, I would say that the word trust is interchangeable with confidence. As a matter of fact, the word trust in Spanish is confianza, which trust, confianza, is also confidence in Spanish is also confianza. So it's the same word. Okay, they are interchangeable.
That's so true. They're actually not in English. Trust and confidence are different, but in Spanish they're the same. Very interesting.
That's phenomenal.
So what builds confidence? We talked about being able to stay curious, which takes it to a place place of empathy, which then will help us be more courageous, ask more courageous questions. But to break it down even more, and Hector and I actually built ourselves a little worksheet for you, which is homework for you to do. Believe it or not, you showed up to a free webinar and we're giving you homework. Yes, this is the way we roll in Reframe. Sorry, not sorry. Okay. What builds confidence? It starts with clarity. It's understanding, like, what do you need to be clear on? We're going to talk a little bit about some questions you can ask yourself. Clarity of your purpose. The better you know your why, the more confident you'll know and to move to the next, to move with certainty. Understand your truth. Clarity is also about understanding your truth or the truth, or understanding the customer's truth if we're talking about wanting to price with confidence. The truth of what they see that's valuable. Competency is also important, right? Competency is the ability to confidently know what you're talking about. You know, when you're actually like talking about your service, the outcome that it provides, you know, the answers to the questions that the client has, because a lot of these things are also dependent on the client feeling that you know what you're talking about. That's what helps them build trust, and that's what gives them confidence. Remember, the confidence is not just about your confidence, it's also giving the client confidence in their ability to make a decision to potentially work with you. So showing your competency helps build confidence with the client. Your experience is useful, right? In my experience, this is what I've seen, this is what I've done. So you also want to ask yourself questions about what experiences you need to get yourself into in order to build confidence. So sometimes to understand if you can charge more, you need to try to charge more. Like you need to say the price. You can't just like think that you could charge more. You have to like say it, like send the proposal, hit send in the email, hit send in the email. Like I've had so many people that are so scary of like, they spend days building the perfect email. Like, and they want to like overly sprinkle all the value around it. And then the price, they put the font into 6, you know, like really, really small or, you know, or like in italics in a weird way so that it doesn't look as scary, right? How do I make the number less scary, right? So we just got to do it. You just do it. Literally Nike, just do it. Now, progress of
Carlos,
visibility. Yeah.
would you say that in a way, the font size of your price is equivalent to the confidence you have in your price?
You know what? We're gonna get back to you on that. There's probably gonna be some sort of there is definitely some marketing and there are some marketing techniques on how to look at price. But competency, I think, Hector, going back to like experience and competency, this is where we bring folks like Ron Baker and Blair who talk about strategy around pricing, because the way we present it matters, because there are a lot of cognitive biases that help us lead folks to arrive at a decision with greater levels of confidence rather than levels of anxiety or uncertainty. Okay, so folks, now we've got a debate about what's the right font size. I did not mean for this to happen, but it's fine. What erodes confidence? We know it's rejection, fear of rejection, internal criticism, which is your narratives. Like, what are the narratives that you're saying to yourself that is stopping you from being able to move and just move to experiment, right? Could you move into what's called an experimental mindset? Doesn't necessarily mean if you're going to increase your prices for 100 clients, you're not going to send an email to 100 clients. Could you send it to the first 5 and learn from that? Because then low stakes, right? Could you do low stakes? Take low stakes chances first, build a little experience, build a little confidence on that. I heard a noise, Trisha. Did anything resonate?
Oh, yeah, that was a because I think it goes back to that word arrogance. I think a fixed mindset is an arrogant mindset. A fixed mindset doesn't ask any questions because they assume they know all of the answers. Where, you know, when we are in curiosity, we're asking the right questions. I really like that frame of mind to say, am I fixed mindset or am I open to learning? Am I open to asking the questions?
Beautiful. It's right on. You know, it's mindset is a key to helping us get to the place we want to get to. And, you know, we can be, again, curious with ourselves, with why we're thinking the way, observing our thoughts too is a helpful way to understand, are we building our confidence or eroding it? And then lastly, unclear direction, which is the opposite of clarity of purpose. Like if you're just moving just to do the next tax year and say to yourself, next year will be different. and then you do absolutely nothing. Or unclear direction could mean I'm going to buy all the apps. I'm going to technology the hell out of my processes with my clients, so I don't even have to talk to them about the price. Like, is that really clear? Is that really the best way? Is that what's best for the customer? So really having clarity also in the direction, the way you lead, how you position yourself, which are other topics we'll be talking about in our bigger event later this year. So one quick idea here. I know Hector wanted me to share a new slide. Hector, do you want to? Okay, so Hector and I, we put together this accounting professionals guide to cracking the confidence code, price based on the value you provide. And so we'll go over a few questions briefly because in the interest of time, we won't be able to go over them in depth. But these are some questions you can ask yourself so you can arrive at a place of moving more with confidence, right? So when you're thinking about raising your prices, when you're thinking about communicating your value, when you're thinking about how to better understand what your client values, these are some great questions and resources for you to look at. Hector will share the link in the comments and also in the slides here. Anything to add on this, Hector?
No, just the link is in the slides. It's a Word document. You can download it as a PDF. This is the homework that Carlos was talking about, and this is the expanded version of the questions that we want you to ask yourself and ask your firm existentially about, where are you in the area of confidence and pricing and cracking that code.
And the last idea we want to leave you with, which is another of cornerstone of conversational excellence, whether it's with yourself or with your clients, is that the person asking the questions controls the conversation. If you're thinking in terms of I need to solve, you solve first. There chances are you're not going to be able to arrive to the outcome that you're looking for. But if we could stay curious enough and ask questions, whether it's challenging our current narratives or the things that challenge our confidence, the things that make us feel hesitant about moving forward with confidence, then we can arrive at a place of self-awareness, self-compassion, acceptance, and then move to a place of action. Because the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is action. Because action is the best feedback we can ever get, right? Trisha, you talk about, our thoughts feed our beliefs, and our beliefs feed our action.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, I would also argue, and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, we could start a debate on this. I would argue that we can't think our way into confidence, unfortunately. We have to do. We have to experience it. It's the only way we'll know it. I was sitting with a friend in a cafe yesterday, and he started his business, and he's a coder, and he does websites, and he does technology, and he does automations. And I asked him, have you created any content? Have you reached out to any people? He's like, no, but because I'm still figuring out how to develop my lead magnet, and I'm still working on my website, and I'm still working on this, and I'm like, but why don't you do? Well, I think that if I do that, I go, what evidence do you have? Have you done it? What evidence do you have? Have you done it? Have you done it? Have you done it? I'm an action coach, right? It's like, if you don't do it, don't give me any BS. Like, do it first. Go gather the results, and then tell me if it works, if it doesn't work. If you have no evidence, then it doesn't exist. It's all fugazi. It's all fake. It's imaginary. And oftentimes we stop ourselves from taking action because, our thoughts will stop us from it.
Mm-hmm. I am a mom of a soon-to-be 28-year-old young man that lives with autism. And there were 6 pediatricians told me that Darren would never speak and put a ton of limiting beliefs on him. And Darren will be the first person to tell you at the age of 27 that he has more words than I need to hear on a daily basis. And for the boy that would never speak, let me tell you, he speaks with confidence, and he is the sweetest thing in the world. And if you ever have the opportunity to meet him, and I'm talking to the global audience, you will forever be changed. And I can say that in confidence and not in arrogance, because it's not just a feeling, it's a fact. And Darren was going into a job training program. And when he was going into the job training program, it was where he started in a shadow position where he was shadowing the people around him. The shadow then elevated into the next level position of what they called a associate, The goal was to go from associate to a paid associate. And I'm in the room with Darren and his job coach, and I have to be quiet. And for the girl who's paid to be quiet was quite the challenge. And I had very clear marching orders when I walked into the room, and they put an assessment in front of Darren, and there were 15 items on this checklist, of which 12 items had a box that said met expectations, and 3 items did not meet expectations. And Darren looked down on the form, and the boy that was sitting there so confident prior to seeing that form suddenly shrunk, not only in stature, but I watched the emotion drain from his face. I was not allowed to speak. So we leave the room, we get in the car, and I looked at Darren and I said, help me understand what you were thinking in that moment. And he said, they told me I wasn't good enough. And I looked at him and I said, so Darren, I was in the same room that you were, and I saw the checklist and I saw the met expectations, and I saw that there were 12 things that met expectations and 3 that did not. And they never used those words. So help me understand why you think that someone said you're not good enough. Well, the 3 check boxes. I said, okay. What I would like you to do tomorrow is approach your job coach and ask if there's one thing that you can do in each one of these areas, going back to taking action, right? What are the one thing you can do in each one of these areas to do better and make a marked improvement? Can you do that? And are you comfortable having that conversation? Yes, I am. Great. 30 days later, we're at the same table. The form comes across. Darren's sitting there very confidently, looks at the form and went, whoo. When I said, can I speak? And they said, absolutely. I said, Darren, help me understand what you're feeling in this moment. He goes, this is the form they told me I wasn't good enough. The thought and the belief was still there with the narrative. And I said, could you look at the check boxes now for me and tell me what it says? And all of a sudden, he started to rise up in his chair and have this big smile on his face, because everything that did not meet expectations now met expectations. And all 15 check boxes were completely aligned. Darren's confidence grew in that moment, but it was because he chose to take action. And with that, they said, Darren, we would like to offer you a job as a paid associate. And my son, with too many words, said, well, thank you, but I'll have to think about that. So it wasn't arrogance on his part, but what started out is I didn't meet expectations and created this internal narrative. We needed to take that internal narrative, ask some really great questions, ask the people around us, what could I do better in this space? Learn, apply, revisit, come back, right? And so what you're talking about reminds me so much of that. Take the feedback, ask the questions. As long as it aligns with your mission and your authenticity and you're not abandoning your values for the sake of X, figure out a plan. What are you willing to take action on? Take action and get the result that you deserve.
Wow. What an impactful story. Thank you so much, Trisha, for sharing that, being open and vulnerable with us to share that journey. And it resonates with me tremendously. I know many others. And I think that is the best way for us to wrap up, our conversation today. But I know, Hector, you got a couple of final reminders and thoughts to share with our folks today.
Yeah. So first of all, Trisha, thank you so much for being in today's webinar. Thank you for being last year at Reframe 2024. Fun fact, we asked all the attendees to describe in one word how they felt at the last day of the conference, and they all used one word, and transformative and transformational was the most common, followed by inspirational, impactful, and enlightening. And Trisha, I know you had a huge part of that, and you will have a huge part of that in Reframe 2025. So thank you for that. So you can stick for like 10 minutes or so, because we have some hands up for Q&A, or maybe Carlos and I can stick with it. I just want to make one last call. LA, Chicago, Dallas, New York City, come see Carlos and or myself. Or in November of 2025, Miami Reframe event. Don't miss it. Pricing with confidence. Thank you very much. Webinar officially over. We're going to be entering overtime and doing any open Q&A for those that want to go ask additional questions. So We have 4 people with their hands up, and I'm going to call your first name, and we'll let you, I assume that you want to say something with voice, so we'll let you do it. So we have, and sorry, I'm going to butcher this, Alemayehu. I just gave you the ability to talk, so you want to ask your question? Yes. Alemayehu, go ahead. You got your microphone on.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
All right, Hector.
Looks like we're having
he may have just
connection
raised his
problems.
hand, but I don't think he wants to share anything because.
So Alemayehu, sorry if I hope I got the name right. Ask the question via text and we'll read it. It sounds like we have some connection questions. We have Shanaz. Shanaz, you should be able to speak now if you unmute yourself. Okay. Shanaz, unmute yourself. All right. Sorry to be blunt. I don't think some of these people understand Zoom etiquette. When you raise your hand, it's because you want to say something live. And if you can't say it live, you write it on the chat, right? Karen Schott, giving you the ability to talk if you want to ask your question. Go ahead, Karen.
Hector, maybe they're just raising their hand to say like, raise the roof.
Woo!
Oh, like
Hallelujah.
raising the roof.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. But I know Shannon. Shannon always
There
has
you
something
go.
to say.
I know Shannon has a microphone. Shannon, I know you have a microphone.
There she
There you
is.
Hi. So, one of the things that really helped me with my pricing journey was giving each other, like, a friend of mine would have a quote that they had to give. I would quote that for them and give them that price. And there's a group of 5 of us that would all, get together like every other Wednesday for an hour and just practice different things that we needed to do for our businesses. And one of the things that really helped me was giving a $100,000 quote to a friend of mine, because that is really what that job was worth. And it's still nerve-wracking, even though you know that it's not a real quote, but the fact is that you gave it. And then you had a conversation about it.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps anybody.
I agree. Having peers to help you build your confidence is absolutely huge, right? Because you get some reference. Like I would charge this, I would charge that. And Shannon, I'll tell you, like my first journey of wanting to charge something, I wasn't that confident, but I had the amazing magic and support of Hector's mentorship. When I had my first client, I was like, I'm thinking about charging this. But in my head, before I went up to Hector, I said, he's probably gonna say I'm not charging, it's too low. So I'm gonna add another, $500 to it just to prove him that I can charge more. So like my first price was gonna be like 500, but then I said something like, I don't know, 800 probably. And he said, that's too low. So I lost anyway. But what it did for me is it gave me borrowed confidence, which is what Trisha was referring to earlier. And Trisha, I know you raised your hand. Do you want to add a comment?
What's really interesting about that is it allows this small group. Shannon, did you create this because you detached from the outcome then? And by having somebody else quote it, it was almost, I'm just curious, why did you create the group? What was the need that you were solving?
Am I still here?
Yeah,
Okay.
you are.
Well, I just didn't see my thing. It didn't give me the opportunity to like turn my camera on. But it was like a accountability group that we had.
Still there, Shannon?
Yeah, we might have lost her.
Yeah, I think she's still there.
Yeah, we lost her.
No, I'm
Oh, there you are.
here.
There you go.
I clicked the button to allow you to add me as a panelist, and I didn't realize that it was gonna kick me out, and then I'd have to
Got
rejoin.
it.
It's an, and I still can't turn my camera on. Oh, there we go. We formed as an accountability group to because we were part of a different program. And part of it was, implementing the things that we were learning in the program. But one of the things that just kept being a recurring issue with everybody was pricing. And it's way easier for me to tell somebody else what to charge their client than it is for me to charge that to my client, because I am removed from the outcome. But it just gave all of us a bunch of confidence in order to charge what we needed to charge. And, just to share Carlos's pricing journey, I worked with him on a project. He gave me a price and I went to Hector and I'm like, Carlos isn't charging enough. He needs to charge a lot more.
Because you recognized my value and I was
Yes.
just getting started, right? And I mean, but I love that you're sharing that, and I'm willing to be open and vulnerable to that. But like, we all are in different parts of our journey and certain things. Shannon, you hire me again and I'll tell you my price, right? Like,
I don't know if I can
years.
afford you anymore.
Right, there you go. Well, thank you for giving me enough confidence to not hire me again.
Oh, but think about who they're serving and what they're solving in that, right? That is so extremely powerful, because if the perspective is I need someone else, it's about enlisting the support of others, which I think is a brilliant approach to life and business. By enlisting the support of someone else who understands you, understands your business, there is a certain confidence. You're gaining borrowed confidence from someone else when they tell you this is what this is worth. Because it could be possible that you're not putting that price on it because you might not have felt like you were worth it or your services were worth it. And to have the affirmation of someone saying this is where I would price it at gives you the ability to take a look at it and go, okay, what questions could I be asking myself about why I didn't price myself that way? What is the internal conversation you should be having that kept you from putting that number on it? And how do you get in a better relationship with what it is that you want to achieve, right? What opportunities will come as a result? So what actions do you need to take? It's interesting how you are feeding each other in such an amazing way. I think it's a brilliant strategy. Oh, you're on mute, Carlos.
Yeah, well, he gets unmuted.
Yeah.
I also allowed Julie, who wants to, Carlos, go ahead and do the final comments. Julie, you can now talk.
Yeah, as we get Julie to unmute, I would just say it's also a borrowed belief, because when you have trusted peers going to you and say you are worth it, you can say, what the hell have I been doing this whole time? I am freaking worth it, right? Like, it's a nice little kick in the butt for you to be able to move with this sort of like borrowed belief, because somebody else has done it and somebody else has been successful that is close in your circle. They believe in you, and the evidence is there that they've done it before. Well, if they can do it, why not me? Right? If they can do it, why not me?
That's borrowed action. Then right? Because if they can do it, why not me? And then you're willing to take action and have the courage to take action.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Julie, did you want to add a comment or a question? It's like a little radio show here. Okay, Julie's not unmuting. So
Julie, you will have to unmute yourself. You have your hand raised. You have to unmute yourself. We gave you the ability to talk.
Nope, not at this time.
Oh, okay. So again, Zoom etiquette, right? The hand raise is not to raise the roof. It is to ask a question. Joseph, you're permitted to speak.
Hey, how you doing? So,
how are you, man?
I'm well, man. I'm well. You've been in the game for a long time, my friend. Long time. When it comes to pricing, right? Like, what is the best practice? Is it tier pricing, value pricing? Is it when you get resistance, you're in the sweet spot? Like, what is the best price, or you're not charging enough? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I got a 2.5 day solution for you. November 2nd to November 4th in Miami. And the reason for that is because pricing is not a quick answer. It's not like a political rhetoric where I can give you like a zinger and you're like, you're done, you're ready for pricing. But
Right.
pricing is a journey of a combination of things. One is, what do the customers think your positioning is, the what I call the pricing category. A lot of, especially accounting professionals, they want to know the number. Like, what's the number? Like, what's the number? Do I end in 99 or do I end in 00? Like, we obsess a lot about the tactics, and
Exactly.
whether it's package pricing or multi-tier or whatever, and we forget about the most important thing, which is the category that you're in. So
Mhm.
this is the best way to explain it, right? We have a car company that makes Volkswagen, that makes Audi, and that makes Porsche. Okay, and then there is a SUV version in the Porsche that's over 100 grand. There's an SUV version in Audi, which is like somewhere between 60 and maybe $80,000 and $90,000. And then there's an SUV version in Volkswagen, which is under $50,000. Now they're all functionally the same, and they all have about the same fit, but we don't we don't put them all together as the single category of car. And the same thing needs to happen in accounting. Like, you need to put yourself in a pricing category. If I ask you how much is an SUV Porsche, maybe you can't give me an exact price, but you know what tier in terms of category it is on. And to continue with the car dealership, we'll go to a car dealership and look at an F-150 and they have it listed for 52,380. And we go in there and try to haggle and try to get it for 50,000, right? But when we go to a Lamborghini dealership or whoever, I mean, not we, I haven't gone there yet, but when anybody goes to a Lamborghini dealership, and they're spending 4, 5, 6 times as much as somebody buying an F-150, they typically don't even haggle the price. Like, if they can afford it, they can buy it. So the answer to your question is, first of all, you got to put yourself in the category, right? So are you in the Volkswagen, in the Audi, or the Porsche category? And how do you do that? You do that with branding, right? You do that with positioning. You do that with content. You do it with authority. You do it with the books, with the podcasts, with the videos. You've been in this game for a very long time, right? That means that you don't know how much I would charge you for consulting work, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to be one of the most expensive of all the people you ask. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? That's because I position myself in that category. So that's the first major overarching lesson, is what are you doing to come up in categories, right? Okay, so now we've done that. So now within that category, now we got to compete, right? There's going to be multiple accounting professionals. How do we compete? So we compete with multiple ways. We compete by specializing, which means we say no to more people that we say yes to. That means we do one thing over and over in the most boring manner, because we know that when we go deep and deep and deep and narrow, we discover a world of possibilities, because we're just doing the same thing over and over for the same type of customer. And when that type of customer comes up, they look at you as the only person that was put on earth to solve that specific particular problem. And they hire you for much smaller jobs, but they pay a lot more because they're trying to solve a more narrow, but a more expensive problem. So that's also part of positioning, part of specializing. Then the other part of competing within that category with other professionals is, are you having conversations where the person goes, oh, this guy's done this before? Are you having that type of conversation, right? Are you focusing on what the customer has, and you're asking questions that make the customer go, those questions are so insightful that it could only come from a place of knowledge and experience and been there, done that, and being in the trenches, right? That's the value conversation, right? That's what we focus on that on our US tour, and we're going to focus on that in the Miami event. And then lastly, right, you master all those things. Then lastly, you think, okay, what's my tactic to price? So the tactic will be 3-tiered pricing, right? There's a version of your services that's all in. It includes everything. Customer, you don't have to worry about it. It is one price for it to be the over-encompassing. We will grow your finances together as a team, as a partnership. That's the highest tier. Then the middle tier is, you're going to solve my problem and give me a little extra. And then the small tier is foot in the door, just the basics, right? And then we're actually going to talk about how to construct that at Reframe. So look at everything that we spoke about from a strategic, and there's a lot more, to the point where we think about the specific tactic of how to go about pricing. And I think we don't think too much about that in the back end. And then after you price, after you engage, what does positioning look like in the back end of that? Like, how do you do your service delivery? How do you create value? How do you guarantee your outcomes? How do you plus your service offering so the customer thinks that all the time you're innovating and giving them new things? So that's like a 10 parts, as we said, like the 10 P's of a reframed accounting practice, thinks about all the moving parts, not just specifically how to price. So Joseph, I gave you a non-answer to your question, but hopefully I want you to think bigger.
You answered my question.
Okay, all right.
Go to Reframe.
And then this exactly. And the second part of the answer is stop charging based on effort. Forget about this is going to be this difficult or take this much time, therefore this should be the rate. Should always be a flat rate, should always be based on the value that you provide. And with that, I'll end it. Carlos, wrap it up. And
Thank you.
Trisha, thank you very much. And you know what, Trisha, if you do have one last thing to say, I'll let you end it.
I just want to let everyone know, I love the fact that there's still 103 people on the call right now, which says that there is great value in the continued conversations. I look very forward to being a part of Reframe, and some of these continued conversations, the value that you bring to the people around you is unmeasurable. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your transparency and having me be a part of this very special group. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for allowing me to live out my mission to reach the most amount of people in the least amount of time, making the greatest amount of impact.
Thank you, Trisha.
everyone.
We love you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Trisha.
Carlos. You know
Thank
how
you.
I feel
Bye-bye,
about you.
everyone. Have a good one.